In early 2022, the British Association for Modern Mosaic are holding an exhibition in the chapter house of Chester Cathedral. We hope to showcase beautiful examples of modern mosaic, responding to the theme Constellations. This short video describes the venue. Chester Cathedral was originally a Benedictine abbey, established by Hugh Lupus, the Earl of Chester, in 1093 and dedicated to St Werburgh. It was extensively remodelled by George Gilbert Scott in the late 19th century. It is a beautiful building with ornate ceilings and tiled pavements. The architecture is a beautiful combination of medieval and modern. Chester Cathedral is home to a fine collection of Victorian mosaics. In the nave there is a very large marble wall mosaic designed by John Clayton of Clayton & Bell and executed by Burke & Co. The reredos is a detailed Last Supper in beautiful condition. Again designed by John Clayton, this mosaic was made by Salviati. There is another collaboration between John Clayton and Salviati in the St Erasmus Chapel. This mosaic suffered considerable damage but has recently been restored. Naomi, the cathedral conservator, told me all about the restoration.
If you have been lucky enough to visit us at any point, you will also know that we have mosaics on the north aisle of the nave, the big wall-mounted ones. We also have a mosaic at the high altar in the reredos, and we also have a mosaic in the St Erasmus Chapel. Now, the mosaic in St Erasmus Chapel and on the high altar are different to the north aisle of the nave and the baptistry. They were installed by a different company, they're made of different materials, and they were installed in a slightly different time as well. The Erasmus mosaic and the high altar mosaic are made of glass, and I was lucky enough to be part of the team that did some conservation and restorative work on the Erasmus mosaic back in 2019. Similar problem to the baptistry mosaic. There was a problem with drainage on the external face of the Erasmus Chapel, and all the rainwater was coming off the roof and just coming straight down the side of the building. And because sandstone, particularly the sandstone that the cathedral built out of, is very, very porous, all the water was absorbed and it couldn't escape correctly. So the water was trying to come out through the wall where the mosaic was and forming salt crystals. And this was causing problems. It was causing hollow pockets again, full of salt crystals. But unfortunately, because this was a wall-mounted mosaic, gravity wasn't its friend and large sections of it fell away. So there were big holes in the wall. So the idea with that was to take drawings from other sections of the mosaic, because it was a repeating pattern, and replicate the missing areas and put them back onto the wall in a new mounted mortar, just to help provide some stability. And then at the bottom some small lime fills were put in, and there is still a lot of problems with damp, but the salts now come out through the areas that can breathe, so they can be brushed away really easily. Salts will always be a problem at the cathedral, unfortunately. The building, as I say, is quite damp, and the human remains, as they decompose, are also quite salty, and it all gets absorbed into the surrounding material, the ground and the building. So unfortunately, salts will always be an issue at the cathedral, but there are ways of dealing with them and just making sure that there's just regular maintenance of sweeping them away and just checking that things are okay, just to make sure that things don't get any worse, and if they do start to get worse, we can act quickly to prevent them from causing too much damage.
Just before the pandemic, another mosaic was rediscovered beneath the carpet in the baptistry. It is a beautiful design, but in a very fragile state. Naomi explains the ongoing restoration process.
So at the moment, one of the big conservation projects that we have going on at the cathedral is the baptistry mosaic. It's a late Victorian piece installed in 1885, and for about the past 10 years it's been covered by a carpet. A lot of people weren't aware of the existence of the baptistry mosaic because it was been hidden away from sight. The state of the mosaic was quite poor, and unfortunately there have been a lot of problems that have arisen over the years, and the placement of the carpet was a result of these problems, and people with good intentions putting something on that they thought would help address the issue, protect it, and in fact it didn't really help at all. It made things a bit worse. So when I started in 2019, we removed the carpet completely, and underneath the carpet was this beautiful mosaic, and it was very dirty. It soon became apparent that when we removed the carpet that there was also a surface varnish that had been put on top. The varnish isn't original in any way. It was a floor covering that was put on to protect the floors, not just at the baptistry but throughout the entire cathedral on all of the stone floors. And the carpet and the varnish together meant that the mosaic couldn't breathe at all. So there were problems with salt efflorescence underneath. The building as a whole is quite damp, and there's a lot of cement pointing in the building, not a lot of good ventilation, which doesn't quite make sense considering how big the space is, but you need the air to move. And the varnish and the carpet on top of the baptistry just prevented that adequate ventilation on the surface. We've also done some sub-level excavations, just taken a core sample, and it turns out that there is also a concrete screed underneath there as well. So there is a lot of trapped water, and it's just causing a lot of salt problems, and this is causing detachment of the tesserae from the mortar backing, so it's causing areas of loss and large pockets of salts which sound hollow to the touch. The floor bounces in some places because the salts are that bad, and the only thing that's holding it together is the grouting that's been placed over the top. So it was decided that the mosaic needed to be conserved and then restored, so the areas of loss needed to be replaced. And that's part of a big 5-year project that we currently have going on. At the moment, we've cleaned the varnish off, and we are recording the surface, so we are drawing by hand the entire design, as unfortunately we don't have a complete copy of the design in our archives. So we are drawing it onto sheets of polyester film, and then these drawings that we are taking will then be used to replicate each section in order to ensure that the design is the same, just as the original creator intended it to be. And these sections will then be put down as new floors, so the whole floor will be lifted and cleaned to remove all the salts, and then we will put new backing mortar and new foundations in, more lime-based materials rather than a concrete-based material, so that it breathes better. And then we'll put the new floor down as panels down as a new floor and throughout the area, so eventually the public will be able to walk on it just as normal. No protective coatings needed, it just needs good ventilation on there, and from there it'll be a usable space.
In the cloister garth, there is a sculpture installed to celebrate the 900th anniversary of the foundation of the abbey. The Water of Life is by sculptor Stephen Broadbent. At the cathedral, there are some beautiful stained glass windows, including these modern examples. The Great West window, shown here, dates from 1961 and was made by Carter Shapland. This beautiful abstract design was made by Alan Younger. The creation window in the refectory of the cathedral was installed for the millennium. It was made by Rosalind Grimshaw. Cathedral visitors are always drawn to the cobweb picture, which is painted on the net of the caterpillar. The painting comes from the Tyrol. Here I have included some details from the stained glass on a variety of themes, featuring creatures, flowers, stars, music and pilgrimage. The glazed cloister has examples by Nicholson, Eden and local artist Trina Cox. Throughout the cathedral, there are also windows by Kemp, Clayton and Bell, and Heaton, Butler and Bain. A comprehensive illustrated catalogue of the cloister windows can be accessed via the cathedral website. Angels inhabit every corner of the cathedral. In the Archangel window by Powell's in the south transept, in the Archangel window by Frederick Eden in the cloister, and the wooden carvings of the choir. Ranulph Higden, a Benedictine monk at Chester, depicted here in a beautiful window by Trina Cox, wrote the Polychronicon. Naomi was delighted to show us this beautiful manuscript.
So this is the Polychronicon. It's a 14th century manuscript, and Polychronicon is a written record of the world at the time. So this particular Polychronicon was not written by the Benedictine monk Ranulph Higden, but one of his contemporaries. But it's still from the 14th century. It's written on parchment, which is split sheepskin rather than vellum, and we have a couple of folios that are illuminated, so that's when they've been gilded and decorated. This is owned by the cathedral, and it's currently kept at the Cheshire Archives, although we are looking to bring it back in-house where possible. And the cathedral hasn't always owned this copy of the Polychronicon. It was originally in private ownership and was purchased by somebody from an antique shop for the sum of £95 in the late 19th century, I believe, and donated to the cathedral. So it's done a full cycle. It was written here, it's gone away for a few hundred years, and now it's come back to us. It's going to form part of an exhibition during Chester Heritage Week on items that we have. It's quite significant to us as an institution, but also nationally as well. There are not many examples of manuscripts like this. I think there's two. The other one's in America somewhere. So we're very lucky to have this copy for ourselves. The binding is original. It's alum-toned leather, and the clasps as well, I believe, are original. That just adds value to the book exponentially, and just because a lot of the covers were taken off and the books were rebound later on. There is some evidence of pest activity on the front of it, but I think that just adds to the history of the piece altogether. It's not active now, so that's safe, which is a good thing, but I think it's quite exciting just to look at some of the history of the object.
I hope this short film has given you a flavour of Chester Cathedral. Further images can be found here.